So this actually started like probably close to 5 years ago when it was Erica's thesis project in college. So I mean, I was at home a lot and watching her work on it. She was working with professional game designers, collaborating with a lot of different people, so child psychologists, game designers from Unity, obviously all of her professors from school. And I was at home watching her develop it as well, and giving her critiques on this is what I think would work, this is what I think might not work. And over the years, it sort of really turned into something a lot bigger. I think that a couple of years ago when she went through the I-Corps program and we actually validated the market for it, we realized this had to be done. There's a cultural shift that's happening across the entire country. I mean, everyone kind of sees it. It's no longer really considered like an Eastern medicine to meditate or, to focus on emotional intelligence in general. And here we are sitting on a product or a technology solution that is really capable of providing a measurable outcome in this area.
Everybody wants to help children, right?
Right.
I don't know anybody who doesn't want to help children. How does this help children?
So, I mean, if you can get a child to learn heart rate control, the benefits could be huge. I mean, you think about, in general, if anybody learns heart rate control, they're able to face tough situations easier. They're not going to be inhibited by that situation. I feel like I need to start that over. I don't want to be rambling on too long.
So you will pick the sound bites.
Yeah.
So don't be thinking in your head, is this a sound bite or not?
Right.
We will pick
it's just
the sound
too
bites.
long.
I like I don't care if you go 3 minutes because I'm going to take 15
Okay.
seconds of it.
Right.
Not going to be inhibited. Pick up on that. You said if you're going to be inhibited by situations. What do you mean by that? If you can control your heart rate, you won't be inhibited by situations.
Yeah, so I mean, any situation that is tough that you've prepared for, oftentimes you might fail at it just simply because the situation itself is inhibiting you to perform. You think about taking a really tough test. You may have studied for weeks on end, but when you sat down to take the test, the situation sort of inhibited you from being able to answer the questions correctly, or thinking about what they are, or when you go on an interview. Oftentimes you walk away from an interview going, I should have said that. I really should have, and you just didn't. Or in sports, you see it all the time. I mean, it's the reason that, the clutch players are the best. At the end of a game, everyone says Michael Jordan's the most clutch, or Tiger Woods is making that putt on the 18th green. It's because their, heart isn't pounding out of their chest in that moment.
And how does the product, how does Sea Life help you control that?
Right. So it uses a therapy called biofeedback, which is essentially allowing you to see what is happening in your biosignals and therefore allowing yourself to learn how to control them. So my sister and I, Erica, went through it for overactive brainwaves growing up, which often manifests itself in things such as like ADHD. In Erica's case, it was Tourette's. However, we're doing it for heart rate, just because heart rate can be used, or it's for a very general audience, and I think everybody can benefit from learning heart rate control. So the way that it actually works is the game will react to your heart rate. So we use a Fitbit at the moment, and the game will become easy or clear. And the fish, that is an underwater fish adventure game, and the fish will get happy as your heart rate is controlled or calm. And as you start to lose control or your heart rate rises, the fish will get sad, and it plays on the empathy of children. And therefore, over time, it creates these pathways of realizing, okay, so if I do X, Y, and Z, good things happen. And you're able to sort of autonomically learn how to control your heart rate by playing the game. Only about 15 minutes a day or 45 minutes a week, you're able to really pick up on these skills.
It's personal too. I mean, I know you're doing this as a product, but you mentioned you and your sister's children. Mm-hmm. You've sort of lived with some of this, right?
Yeah. So when we went through it as kids, well, first of all, it was very, very boring. Like traditional biofeedback is you're going into a therapist's office, you're sitting in front of a computer, and you just sort of watch whatever biosignal it is that you're trying to learn how to control on a computer screen for 45 minutes. And it is really, really boring. In our case, it was brainwaves, and you would just sort of sit there and they'd say, okay, now watch your brainwaves and keep them between these two lines. And after about 20 minutes, it felt like you were going to fall asleep.
Right.
So.
But you found the benefit of it. You saw what the promise of what it could do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the benefits were, it was hard to ignore. I mean, it worked. It absolutely worked.
Worked how? What did it do?
So in Erica's case, my case is a little bit more, it's different to explain, but for Erica, she had noticeable tics, and over time she was really able to control it. I mean, most people now would have no idea that she has Tourette's. You'd have to really be sort of looking for those tics, and it was because of biofeedback that she's learned how to be able to overcome them.
And is that part of the passion? What drives you guys to want to do this?
I think it was that we saw something that worked really, really well and that everyone kind of could have benefited from, but at the same time, not enough people would want to go through it because they weren't facing similar problems.
Hold on a second, we'll get to
Yeah.
Take a swig of beer.
Okay.
How you feeling?
Yeah, getting more
You're doing really well.
getting more
How you feeling?
comfortable.
You all right?
It's really good.
Yeah.
You're telling both of your personal stories. I know
Yeah.
I was pulling it out, but
Yeah.
telling a little bit about what you went through,
Mhm.
what you felt like would be cool.
Yeah.
The beer helps too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pause this.
Not right now. Okay.
Alright, one more.
Very good. So you were saying before this came on that you could see it, you guys could personally experience it. Have you thought, what you went through, has it helped you in your life, and if so, how and why, do you think? In other words, the boring part, I know this isn't Sea Life yet, but just sort
Right.
of touching the technology as a client.
Yeah. I mean, so
If it's helped you, how has it helped you?
in my case, I was very overactive, I guess. I would shake my hands a lot. It was sort of a unique tic in a way. I was never diagnosed with anything, but at the same time, it kind of clearly was something that I was able to overcome a little bit with practicing brainwave biofeedback. However, I think I can really see the benefits play out in somebody who was diagnosed with something where it was treating an actual symptom. However, I think that because I went through it, I understand how that works so well and why it works so well. I mean, it's easy to comprehend why those pathways would be connected from your brain to whatever biosignal it is that you're watching. So it makes perfect sense to me that if you're able to watch your heart rate over time and sort of understand, like, okay, if I do this, this is how my heart reacts. Or if, I'm like, play with my fingers this way, my heart reacts a certain way. Or if I take a deep breath, which is obviously something that works for most people, it sort of just becomes second nature. And you understand that these are things I can do to help myself relax. And, it autonomically, your body just sort of does these things when faced with a tough situation. And although I didn't go through it for heart rate biofeedback, it makes perfect sense to me why this therapy would work for that.
So if this takes off
Yep.
as well, if you are able to help hundreds or thousands of children, what would that mean to you and why?
It would be awesome. I mean, that is, I think, the mission that we set out from the beginning. I mean, we kind of recognized that there was a way to help children, and that would just be incredible. It would be, I don't know, if you watch the next generation grow up and be better than the previous generation, and you had even an inkling to do with that, I mean, that would be really, really cool.
And what would you say, you're targeting 6-year-olds here, right? Is that sort of the entry point?
Yeah.
So what is it about, I know it's not magical, but you want to get a hold of children young. What's the idea behind that?
Kids, they just learn better than the rest of us. It's sort of like when you teach a child a language, they just pick up on it better than the rest of us. And it's the same exact thing if you're teaching them heart rate control. So it's as they're learning how to control their body as they grow up, these are things that will really become second nature to them, and they won't have to actively think about as they get older. And if you think about the situations they'll face for the rest of their lives, at 6, they're facing so many things for the very, very first time that many people don't usually think about as being difficult. But just going to school and leaving your parents for the first time is very difficult. If you are trying to make friends for the first time, it's very difficult as you take tests. I mean, there's just so many situations, I think, that we don't really think about as being difficult that for a kid is very unusual and different. And those small changes in their life early on are obviously going to play a large impact for the rest of their lives. So as they grow up and, they have a better social life early on, or if they're performing better on tests, performing better in sports, they're going to do better in junior high and high school, and then ultimately interviewing better and have a better professional life as well. Hopefully they're going to be a happy, successful adult when they grow up.
Is the idea to help in part with confidence?
Definitely.
And what
Definitely.
does, as somebody who's been through it,
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume when you said your hands were shaking, or, we've all had different things. That was yours. We've all,
Yeah.
But there are things that affect your confidence as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? And if there's something that can help you overcome that, I mean, what do you think that would mean to a child?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of different solutions that have to play a part in that, because everybody's sort of facing different problems, like you said. But you also have to give a child the opportunity to allow them to overcome those. And Sea Life, I think, is a tool that will allow them to face those challenges with like a new light. It might not be the only solution, but it could be a huge piece. So as they have to face large challenges in their life and overcome emotional anxiety or stresses that they have growing up, they're going to be capable of doing it, because all of a sudden now when they face those situations, their heart isn't pounding out of their chest. Just like when most of us get up to go, public speak, we're not able to do it. While these kids are going to be able to now face different situations in their life and hopefully overcome different challenges that, is unique to each of us.
And is it different, even though you're a young man, even from when you were growing up, cell phones, right? Instagram, right?
Yeah.
All this stuff. Do you think it's harder today, and therefore maybe even more important, to address emotional intelligence and well-being for kids today, given what they face today?
Yeah, I think it's always been important. I think that we're recognizing that it's more important now than we ever did in the past. There's probably something to be said about the fact that kids are sort of living on their cell phones and tablets all day long, and they don't socialize as much. But at the same time, I think that it's just emotional intelligence is so important. And being able to face situations with clarity is huge. And I mean, it's really a big piece of emotional intelligence, and it's not the only piece. It's just something that is going to allow them to face every situation with clarity.
Okay, now I'm an educator, and
Okay.
I know there's this new thing called CEL. I don't want to get us too deep into the weeds, but now there's a recognition by the Ohio Department of Education and other states that we need to address emotional intelligence and emotional needs. So how does Sea Life fit into this recognition that's taking place now?
Yeah, so there's a new learning domain being implemented in Ohio in 2019 called social emotional learning. And Sea Life really does play a piece into all of the different attributes that they've laid out for that, such as like self-regulation. I forget all the different bullet points there. Yeah.
But your
Yeah.
your product, I don't want to say product, Sea Life would help me as an educator address this in my district, and if so, how?
Yeah, so very specifically, it's actually a very, very difficult learning domain to implement because it's hard to measure. I think schools are trying to, actively seek out solutions for this right now. They're finding that it's not something that they can prove that they're doing. If they have to place an equal emphasis on social,
If they have to place an equal emphasis.
equal emphasis on social emotional learning, proving to the state that they're doing so is not going to be easy. What Sea Life does is it actually provides measurable data that says this is what we are doing. I mean, there's going to be data that's going to track children through the game and saying over time they're measurably performing better as they face stressful situations. And then there's a lot of research in biofeedback that says if this is what is happening, then they are learning a skill. And that is ultimately what the schools are looking for. And it's going to help, specifically, not even just the teachers, but, the leadership within Ohio be able to go, see, we're doing something.
Or the leadership within other states.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm getting close to the end. You feeling okay?
Yeah.
Give us all right.
Yeah.
So someday a parent comes up to you and says, thank you. What does that mean to you?
I mean, I hope that day comes. That would be great. That would mean that we not only were able to create something that we think works, but over time, obviously, it proved to have had an effect on somebody's life, enough so that not even just that person, but other people around them are recognizing that the benefits that it had, and that would be a really, I think, a memorable moment for sure. The first time somebody comes up and says thank you.
So let me flip it around. What's the goal then, from your side? If the parent comes up, what's the goal that you're after with Sea Life, and why do you think that goal could make a difference for children?
The goal for Sea Life is to make an impact early on in children's lives so that it can change the trajectory of their whole lives. It would mean that they have a chance to have a better life. I mean, they would, test into better classes as they get older. They'll have a better social life, better dating life, interview better, hopefully make more money. I mean, just in general, be happy, successful, emotionally happy people.
And as a kid who did some of this in its early stages, do you see the benefit? Is part of your passion your experience as a child, and if so, how does that tie in? Is part of your passion for doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of always recognized that I was lucky to have gone through it, and I also always recognized why nobody else was going through it. I mean, it was boring. Typically, people that are seeking out biofeedback are trying to solve a problem, when in reality, everyone can benefit from this. And having gone through it now, I think that it would be huge if we can allow the next generation to all experience biofeedback like we did growing up.
Because what's the difference it made?
It made us more successful, happy adults.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right? Am I missing anything? You want to do something over? I heard 3 or 4 sound bites in there that would work.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Of course.
Suggestion?
Yeah.
So
But you have to look at me when you answer.
you guys talked about your experiences related to Tourette's and tics.
Uh-huh.
But when I think about it from a healthcare experience, like the alarming rate of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and I have limited experience with the early stages of biofeedback that are archaic and terrible. What you guys are creating could change the trajectory of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any stats about the kids dealing with anxiety today? If that could be a huge target for you,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some statistics or a personal, not a story, you touched upon what you're dealing with, but do you have any heartfelt stories about a kid who benefited from this, or is it still in the early stages? But
It's still in the
statistics.
early. It's a little early for statistics.
Well, you could say,
Yeah, but people have benefited from biofeedback and there's heartfelt stories.
There used to
But
be anxiety.
not,
how many kids?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Our kids have anxiety.
Yeah.
It's debilitating to them. So, is there a way to say?
yeah.
Do you think, because we can throw the numbers in when we put the video together, do you think Sea Life could help address the growing problems of anxiety and depression in kids? And if so, how do you think heart rate control or Sea Life could help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most prevalent problems that we're seeing in high school and college students today. And if they had grown up learning how to control their heart rate and being able to face tough situations, a lot of the issues that they face, they would have had an easier time, as they grew up facing those issues.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
all I'm going to try to do is and we can leave this out, I'm going to
Yeah.
try to bring the words anxiety and depression out of your mouth.
Yeah.
As opposed
I was
to me
gonna-
just saying it.
Yeah.
So how do you think those two, mention how would Sea Life help address those two, anxiety and depression?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase it now.
Take us with you.
If you could say something like anxiety and depression are so prevalent
Yeah.
among middle school and high schoolers today, we hope that Sea Life will help turn that trend around.
Yeah,
Something like
Yeah,
that.
start the sentence with anxiety.
Yeah, you got
yeah,
So, but look at me when you do it.
yeah.
I make everybody anxious.
So anxiety and depression are so prevalent in middle school, high school, college, and we hope that through Sea Life we can change that for future generations.
That was perfect. We can do
Something that dawned on me when you're doing this, that something like Sea Life, let me pause.
Mm-hmm.
How you feeling? I thought you did great.